Hello and welcome to Library Connection. I'm Mandy Cantrell, Youth Services Director at the B.B. Comer Memorial Library here in Sylacauga. Before I get started, I want to thank TV47 and Robert especially for all they do to help us put our program on. Today is a very hot topic we're talking about right now. Andy Green is joining me. He is the Director of Community Engagement at Jacksonville State University. So thank you for being here, Andy.
Thank you so much, Mandy, for having me.
Appreciate you making the drive in this morning early to talk about the 2020 census that's coming up. I've heard a lot about it, but I'm sorry I almost got ahead of myself. Tell us about yourself first. I know you are Director of Community Engagement at JSU.
Yes, I've been working at Jacksonville State University almost 15 years now as a team member, and the 4 years before that as a student. I feel like I've got almost 20 years at JSU, so half of my life has been spent on the campus of JSU. But while I was a student at Jacksonville State, I majored in geography, and a big part of what we will do in geography as students is we will take census data, and use it to make decisions to solve real world problems. And so my work with census actually began when I was a student, and taking census data and being able to put that into whether that be for a project or for an actual real world problem to solve an issue based on the number of persons within a specified geographic area. So having been a student at JSU and now working in various roles at Jacksonville State University, and now having the opportunity through my current position to work with the Calhoun County Complete Count Committee. And I know that's a lot of C's. It looks a lot like my transcript, I think, from when I was a student. But that work with the Complete Count Committee, and those have been formed across the state of Alabama and just different regions in order to pull persons together to educate the community about the census and its importance.
All right. So we're in a region east. What did you tell?
Yeah, we're here in East Alabama that we have several different connections. Of course, Calhoun County, Talladega County are contiguous. We connect to one another, and while our Complete Count Committee has the word Calhoun in it, we know that what's good for Calhoun County and its 114,000 residents is going to be good for Talladega County. And certainly we have seen over the last several years a more regional approach in all that we're doing. And so that is an opportunity here in East Alabama, specifically with the census, the numbers that will fall, that will come as a result of the census in 2020. Whatever helps in East Alabama will help the entire state. Congressionally, we know that we have a lot of districts that are closely aligned based on our two counties. And those census numbers play a big role when it comes to congressional numbers.
Wow, that's great. Well, so we are talking about the 2020 census. Now, the census happens, we'll just get down to basics, I guess, every 10 years. Is that correct?
That's right. The United States Constitution mandates a count every 10 years of the residents within the country. And so we know that there have been some Supreme Court decisions that have been coming out about the census. And while our Complete Count Committee is listening to all of those, we are not focused solely on all of those decisions that are happening. What we want to make sure of is that every person counts. Actually, in Calhoun County, we had a simple slogan that we came up with that said, why do we count people? Because people count. We recognize that every person counts. They matter in and to each community that they are a part of. And so the census specifically happens every 10 years. Something that's going to be unique this year, Mandy, I say this year as we're right on the cusp of 2020. We'll be celebrating New Year's Eve soon. This will be the first time that a person will be able to complete the census using their smartphone or their handheld device that's internet enabled. And that is a big change. In the past, you would be very common to have a census worker going door to door, knocking on a door and handing you a survey to fill out or asking you the questions and filling those out.
Yes, I remember that.
2010, that's what we did. And here we are at the end of the decade, and we're now to where households will receive a card basically in the mail with a unique identifier that will allow the household to go online or through telephone and complete the census that way. So the level of interaction with an individual decreases, but the level of responsivity hopefully will increase.
I think it will.
Well, and we know, I think back to, my time growing up, if somebody knocked on the door, we rushed as a family to the front door and said, who is it?
Yes.
We all kind of came there together.
You're excited.
We were very excited to have company and invite them in. And now I find with my family, somebody knocks on the door and we kind of say, hey, freeze, don't move.
Right.
we're not home.
They won't know we're here.
That's right. And so,
That's true.
but there are some opportunities to complete the census on the internet, on your phone, as well as through in person. But the in person is the last resort opportunity there.
Wow. Well, that's great. You do have to change with the times, don't you?
Indeed.
And I will have to throw out, I know a lot of people have smartphones. That's great, but if you don't, we have computers at the library. It's free. We have free Wi-Fi connections. So there is a way that everybody can make this happen.
That's correct, Mandy. And really right now, some of the big initiatives that Complete Count committees and other groups are undertaking is organizing with public libraries, maybe specific days that will be census completion days. Those cards will start being mailed out in March of 2020. So you want to make sure that persons are getting that. Bring that card with you. We're organizing some opportunities in Calhoun County right now that will be, bring the card with you, complete the census, get a cup of coffee while you're there, and so that way there's a community feel. Because really the census is about community.
It is.
It's about counting and it's about appropriating members in the House of Representatives, but it's about that sense of community. We're at the time where we set aside and celebrate Christmas, and depending on if you celebrate that as a religious holiday or a cultural holiday, if you're on the religious holiday side, we see that the reason that there was a star in Bethlehem is there was a census that was going on, and that's what caused Jesus' family to be right there in Bethlehem, was for the census. And so we're at the time of year when we're talking about census in Scripture, and we're talking about it on air.
That is great. Boy, I've never tied those two together, but that's the perfect way to do it. So it begins in March. You said the cards will be mailed around the end of March.
That's right. And really the census has already began. I mean, the work that the U.S. Census Bureau has been doing, they've been piloting these new ways of completing the census. Those have been in years in the making, but April 1 of 2020 is what is known as Census Day. That is the official start for the 2020 census, but the work does go in ahead of time. And actually individuals will be able to complete it a little bit earlier than that. Those cards will give the instructions. Some of the instruction that we also want to make sure that people know, if you're living in a group home type situation, it could be a retirement community or an assisted living facility, check with those directors and check with those persons involved there, because many of those are counted as a group. And so one of the roles that I play at Jacksonville State University will be making sure that all of our students on campus get counted.
That's true.
Now we have here in Talladega County Central Alabama Community College. We know that brings students from all across the area right into this county in order to learn. So one of the things that we're also ensuring is that if a student is living away from home and have been away from home for the last 6 months plus 1 day, that they are counted at that location where they are studying. So they're not counted back home. They're not counted wherever they're registered to vote. They're counted where they have spent the last 6 months plus 1 day. So if they're a student, we want to make sure that they're counted in that learning community that they've been a part of.
In the place where they are part of the community.
That's exactly right. And it is a snapshot. The census is every 10 years. The American Community Survey is done every year, and that gets a little bit different snapshot throughout the year and captures other metrics. But the census is a snapshot in time. So where are you at this particular time, even though you might be planning to move in a month, make sure that you complete the census for where you are on April 1 of 2020.
Well, that's great. We're going to pause for a commercial break, and we'll be right back with Andy to talk some more about the 2020 census.
Hot under the collar because your basement is full of water? Call a local company you can trust. Ox Foundation Solutions. We use the most advanced water management system to stop water from invading your basement for good. Things feeling a little uneven at home? Ox Foundation Solutions will fix your uneven concrete sidewalk, driveway, or basement in no time. Ox Foundation Solutions has the best plan to keep your home safe. If you are experiencing any issues with your sidewalks, basement, crawl space, or foundation, get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
Coosa Valley Medical Center, one of the top 10 hospitals in Alabama, is also Silicaga's largest employer. Services from the emergency room, to surgery, to cancer treatment, to post-stroke care. You won't believe what's right in your backyard. It's Coosa Valley Medical Center in Silicaga. So, if you're sick in Alabama, choose one of the top 10 hospitals in Alabama. That is Coosa Valley Medical Center.
Marble City Pharmacy in Silicaga is your destination for the highest quality health care. Our knowledgeable pharmacists are always available for questions about your medications or advice on taking over-the-counter products and supplements. Our friendly staff can assist you in choosing from our full lines of compression hose and medical equipment. And don't forget our gift department. We have a great selection of unique gifts for every occasion. Stop by and see us today. Marble City Pharmacy, here for life.
Welcome back to Library Connection. I'm talking with Andy Green, who is the Director of Community Engagement at Jacksonville State University. And wow, there's so much more to the census than I really thought about. I know, and you did mention there are jobs available too.
That's correct, Mandy. So the U.S. Census Bureau right now is still sourcing persons for jobs, and so visiting the Census Bureau online is the easiest way to get there. Census.gov/jobs. And really what the Census Bureau was looking for, as we previously discussed, there's not as many field workers this time, but what they're looking for are trusted persons in each community. If individuals do not respond to the census card that they receive in the mail, what that will allow is some real-time data, again using some of the geography, to know the census tracts that are not responding. What would be ideal is for a person who lives within that census tract to be a person who works for the Census Bureau. That would be the person going door to door, knocking on the door, and you might be apt to open it for a person that you know versus someone, even though they're wearing the credential, clearly showing they work for the Census Bureau, and it's a familiar, trusted voice.
Oh, that's great, because I know we mentioned you don't want to go to the door if somebody's there, but even giving out any kind of information today, and how much nicer to have a neighbor do that.
Absolutely, and so if you know of a person who's looking for a job, it would be short-term type work. The Census Bureau has a great process for intake and onboarding to get them ready to do that work, but that's coming within the next few months, and so visit census.gov/jobs.
All right. Now we've talked a good bit about how does the census affect us, but what is the economic impact of the numbers that we find?
Yeah, for the state of Alabama alone, the estimates are more than $7.6 billion come into the state of Alabama through federally assisted programs that are based solely on those census numbers. Some of those programs, some folks are very familiar with, and I've got the full list of them here. I will not read the full list to you, but you maybe have heard of Medicaid. And knowing individuals who receive benefits from Medicaid, or the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, maybe Medicare Part B. Everything that's in those social services areas are distributed to states based on their population. And so things from Title I grants to education agencies, and I am certain that many of the schools within this area, just like we have in Calhoun County, they rely on those Title I monies. So we have that, and everything from Section 8 housing to even some of the health center programs that are out there and available to the public. And so those dollars that are coming into the state of Alabama are real dollars from the federal government that is based on census data. So it is important. It does bring in dollars to a community, and if there is an undercount, meaning that we do not get everyone counted, there's a significant impact, because those services are still going to be provided, and that's why it's important to count each person. And many of those persons who are not being counted are some of the ones who are receiving these services. So that's why I'm so happy that you've invited us here to be able to communicate to as many as we can how important it is to complete the census.
It is important. I never thought of all the information you're discussing. And you don't ever really know if your city or county or community is right on the edge there. Just 10 more could bump you up to the next level or whatever it is to get more money for the things we need.
Just locally, I live in the city of Jacksonville. Some census back is based on the population of the city. It's what changed our form of city government. And so that change in population can change very much for your local government. And so that's where you want to make sure every person is counted. But if you do have an undercount, it means there is a less amount of economic impact in the area based on dollars that are coming in. But that's also reflected in business decisions. And so when a company is looking to relocate or to build a new facility, they're going to look at census data. So for business leaders, it is very important to make sure that all of your staff and everyone in the business community is completing the census, because that could be the make or break number for a new company expanding or starting up right here in this community.
That's true. This is what they look to see, if there are enough people, enough industry, and just all kinds of things. That's interesting. I never thought about that. And I think it is really nice. You mentioned having just a few people will be going door to door to the houses that are not counted to have somebody because frauds and scams are around. How can we avoid all of that, scams and fraud?
Yeah, the first thing is to always look for that badge. That's identifying badge from the U.S. Census Bureau. And if that person is knocking on your door, they will identify themselves as being a Census Bureau worker. And if they're knocking on the door, always ask who it is on the other side, or if you don't have an opportunity to peek through and see, ask who that individual is. We have already seen in Calhoun County, a lot of our local law enforcement agencies are identifying those dates, and so that they are putting out through social media that this would be the expected time for someone to visit. So that's something that I believe will probably happen in many communities because there again is the trusted voice. When the police chief says we have Census Bureau workers in our city today and they will be knocking on doors. But the way to make sure that we don't even get there is to complete the census early online. And so I know that you'll make sure that the library is made available if someone does not have at-home internet access, and maybe they want to do that together with someone else and make it just a big census party.
Sure, yes, we have some people that help. A census party, everything can be a party. That's great, that's great. So the cards, is it a letter or a card that will come in the mail?
Yeah, what will come is it will be just from our understanding. I've not seen these yet, but it will be more of a postcard reminder with some instructions, and that's specific to the household. There is a process that happens through each community that's called LUCA, or the Local Update of Census Address. And what that means is that the Census Bureau receives the most up-to-date addresses for a particular area. If there has been a new development, so maybe you are in a new home, meaning the home was just built, that address might not be included in that LUCA update because it was not available at that time. So that household might not receive the card. And if that's the case, that's okay. You can still complete the census through the traditional method of having the paper form. And the Census Bureau has all of these methods in place to make sure that there's no duplicate data entry from the citizens or from the residents completing it.
That's great. They've thought of everything, I believe. Tried to.
That's correct.
To think of everything. When does this end? When's the last?
Very good question. So as Census Day begins April 1 of 2020, what will happen is residents will have the opportunity all the way through the summer, really through end of June into July. And that was when if you do not complete it by certain dates, you're going to start getting reminders in the mail. And if it's anything like we have sometimes in our community as well, I didn't get the first notice, but I got the final notice. And so if you get the final notice, go ahead and complete the census. If not, that's when you would expect someone to be knocking on the door. And really through August is when you would expect to have no more contact. The Census Bureau then has a requirement to compile and have on the desk of the president by the end of the year, 31 December 2020, their census report. And so it's a very busy time for the Census Bureau to get every person counted. We know that it's busy during the summer. That's when many persons are maybe taking time off, going on vacations and traveling. And so if you're not planning on being home during that time, make arrangements to complete the census before you leave town so that a census worker doesn't show up and they still don't get you, because again, an undercount can be very detrimental.
Gosh, that is so very true. So we know what to look for, the card in the mail, and we have plenty of time to complete that. I believe it seems like, it's not just 2 or 3 weeks, it's several months. That's great.
You do. You have time to complete it, and if you have questions about how to complete it, or you're maybe not sure what to do, again, visit www.census.gov, and that is a resource for all of your questions that you maybe have.
I think I did go on the website. It was very good, answered a lot of questions, gave you some good information, so that's wonderful. We're going to pause for another commercial break, and we'll be right back to talk some more about 2020 census.
Hot under the collar because your basement is full of water? Call a local company you can trust. Ox Foundation Solutions. We use the most advanced water management system to stop water from invading your basement for good. Things feeling a little uneven at home? Ox Foundation Solutions will fix your uneven concrete sidewalk, driveway, or basement in no time. Ox Foundation Solutions has the best plan to keep your home safe. If you are experiencing any issues with your sidewalks, basement, crawl space, or foundation, get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
Coosa Valley Medical Center, one of the top 10 hospitals in Alabama, is also Silicaga's largest employer. Services from the emergency room to surgery to cancer treatment to post-stroke care. You won't believe what's right in your backyard. It's Coosa Valley Medical Center in Sylacauga. So, if you're sick in Alabama, choose one of the top 10 hospitals in Alabama. That is Coosa Valley Medical Center.
Marble City Pharmacy in Sylacauga is your destination for the highest quality health care. Our knowledgeable pharmacists are always available for questions about your medications or advice on taking over-the-counter products and supplements. Our friendly staff can assist you in choosing from our full lines of compression hose and medical equipment. And don't forget our gift department. We have a great selection of unique gifts for every occasion. Stop by and see us today. Marble City Pharmacy, here for life.
Welcome back to Library Connection. I'm talking with Andy Green, the Director of Community Engagement at Jacksonville State University, and we're talking about the 2020 census that it'll be 2020 in just a couple of weeks, and then right in end of March, 1st of April is when the census begins. I know we've talked about you can do it online. There will be, if they don't hear from you, then there may be someone coming door to door. How can we help maybe seniors or people who don't read well, who don't exactly know what's going on? How are some ways we can help them?
Well, that's a great question because every person is to be counted.
Right.
And some folks maybe feel that, well, I don't need to be counted based on I don't really participate much in my community. Maybe I'm older in age or maybe I'm young.
Right.
Both of those ranges there are to be counted. And so if you have a neighbor or it's a family member, a loved one who is elderly that is maybe living at home still by themselves and very independent, talk with them and let them know that that's going to be coming in the mail and that perhaps you will be able to help them complete the census. The questions that are being asked, very easy questions. They're wanting to know the number of persons in that household. There are a few other questions that are on there that are just qualifying questions that give us some demographics of the household. The American Community Survey is one that maybe persons have received before. It's about 3 pages the last time I saw it. And it goes into some very detailed questions that a lot of folks don't want to answer. And I can understand we want to have our rights to privacy.
Sure.
But the questions that are on the census itself are very easy and straightforward. Now, if you have young ones in the house, they are to also be counted. And if it's a baby that's 1 day old, all the way up to a teenager who's soon to be 18, every person is counted.
Okay. So the information goes to the census takers, whatever, and they just compile all that for each area, each city, each county area.
That's right. And so what is broken out in Talladega County is there are what are called Census Tracts. And those tracts are based on some different criteria, and so the way that those tracts work is they try to work everything by a tract. Most of the tracts follow along a lot of just neighborhood lines. And so if you think about everyone knows this particular region, just here in Sylacauga there are multiple tracts. One city has multiple tracts within it, but you think maybe on one side of Highway 21 and above the railroad tracks, and so that might be a census tract. And the census website that we said earlier list all of those tracts out. What's very helpful is that as persons are responding quickly to the census, then the census workers will have available the real-time data based on census tract. And so they're going to know what areas are responding versus which areas are not. Those that are not, we call hard-to-count populations or HTC populations. And just locally from where we are, the highest low response score to the 2010 census was our campus at Jacksonville State University. And again, that's part of my effort is to make sure that college students know where to be counted and how to be counted. So maybe I'm talking now to a family right here in this area who has sent your student away to college. Talk with them and make sure that they know that they need to be counted on that college campus and in that area and not back here at home. It does not impact anything back here at home, even though you say, well, that's one less that's in our community back here at home. If they are in a community and a college or a university on April 1 of 2020 and have been there for the 6 month plus 1 day, that's where they should be counted. And so we are taking a lot of strides and efforts to make sure our students know how to be counted. And of course, next year's being a national election year.
Yes.
And so at the same time that you're completing the census, it's also a good time, register to vote. Make sure that you talk with your board of registrars and find out all that you need to know about registering to vote. Just as important as the census.
Yes. Well, that I never thought about college students, but they're at school and do they live there, but yet their home base is still there. And having two daughters that just finished college in the last few years, still used to mom and dad doing a lot of those things, but they're just as important, counted in the community where they live.
That's exactly right. And the community that we live in is where we are to be counted. And so you might work somewhere else, and then but wherever you're residing, sleeping. It's kind of what we say that
Yes.
but we also know that there are hard to count populations like the homeless population, and so how do we effectively count them? And that's where we try to make sure in Calhoun County, and I want to put a call out here in Talladega County as well, is for the community and business leaders to ensure that every person is counted. If you have an area where you know that maybe transient persons are traveling, or that maybe they're homeless, meaning that they do not have a permanent place to lay their head at night, make sure that those individuals are counted in some shape, form, or fashion. Make sure that they understand that they do count. That's why we say people count.
Right.
Those individuals matter, and so they need to be counted also. But this is also an opportunity for education leaders in this area to talk with students about the importance of the census and why we are completing the census, and that they also count and that they will be counted in their household.
That's great. That's also a good time. Libraries, churches, other groups that help people like the homeless could come into play and to help with getting that correct count.
It can, and it's not too late to organize a committee effort, and these grassroots efforts are really where we have seen some of the greatest returns and greatest reward in census counts by looking at other cities and modeling after what they have done and done well. Is if it's a grassroots effort, it doesn't require an elected official to be leading. It can be someone who is it could be even the PTO president, the mom who is always looking after everyone, or the dad or the business leader who just has a concern about the community. Is organize persons to get the word out, educate persons about the census, inspire them to complete the census, and make sure that they're engaged through that process.
That's wonderful. We have about a minute left. One more time, there are jobs available. Go to the census website, right?
Yes, www.census.gov/jobs.
Okay. Good job for someone who's maybe retired, would like to go door to door, be that familiar face, like you said. Well, Andy, I just appreciate you so much coming today. The 2020 census is right upon us. April 1st is the beginning, and we have several months to complete that. If you don't have a smartphone or computer, come to the library, find a friend with a computer, complete all that, because it is very important to every community involved, right?
It is.
I know, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Library Connection, and thank you, Andy, for coming. And make sure that you look for that in the mail around the end of March, 1st of April, so you will be counted, because people count. I love that. Thank you so much for joining us today.